designed to work. If you're sincere about inspections, you have to be the government of Iraq in order to certify what you've got. So much must be clear. No one else can know except the government. So a real call for inspections, a call that really says we want to find out, is the equivalent of a call for regime change.
I think the question is whether America's only tool in this circumstance is force and the threat of force, or whether it's a complicated toolkit which includes force, diplomacy, moral leadership of a coalition based on a certain set of values. I think certainly Colin Powell has pushed the administration toward the latter view. Force mixed with diplomacy, mixed with values, and I think that that's the best way to go for the long term.
Here's the other issue, which, David, you basically don't think this is America's war to make, and you don't think that we should go out trying to create democracies. Do you fear some results, if in fact we do go into Iraq, in terms of what it might do to the Arab neighbors, in terms of whether it will create regional conflicts, in terms of whether it will fan the flames of anti-Americanism, all of that?
Well, I think
and is that a serious issue?
Yes, of course it's a serious issue. It's only in this crazy triumphalist mood in Washington at the moment, this kind of what is the phrase that one of the DOD people used not so long ago? Either get with the program or get out of the way, or to use the president's phrase, you're either with us or against us, which goes against all of diplomatic history and wisdom for all of recorded history. The idea there are no neutrals. Give me a break. But in this context, a war that is widely perceived in the West of the world as an unjust and imperial war can only harm our interests in other parts of the world. I do agree about the terrorism issue. I don't believe the links to Saddam have been proven in any case, but even if they were, the idea that we can really that easily afford to make 20,000 new jihadis, new suicide bombers, the idea that we want to support the Sharon government, which this war will absolutely and ineluctably do. It will strengthen the hand of the people in Israel committed to the worst things as opposed to the people in Israel committed to much better things. All these things seem to me as certain as the strife that will follow from the war.
You agree with that, Michael?
I think that the war will bring all the consequences that Christopher was talking about, plus possibly many others. But we have to be careful about that because your list was predicted for Afghanistan with absolute certainty. If we fought in Afghanistan, if we fought through Ramadan, all these terrible things would happen. The Arab street would go up in flames. It seems only the Arabs have a street.
Not only the Arab street, the European street won't go up in flames, but the divorce between the United States and its Western European allies, and they still are allies, will be that much more pronounced and that much more dangerous in the long term to America's global interests.
Well, I think where the Milosevic example is instructive is if we create a very simple on-off switch, either war against Saddam very soon or doing nothing or accepting close to nothing, we leave out the third way. Here's where I agree completely with Christopher. With Milosevic, several exit options were developed from Milosevic. The one which ended up happening was him leaving, going to The Hague, and being tried. Here, the U.S., rather than trying to develop an international prosecution track that might accept or address the problem, has in fact turned against the International Criminal Court, which has been very counterproductive. And I think one of the questions here is the military strategy here seems to assume the immaculate decapitation strike. If that doesn't work and Saddam is not hit in the first round, that's where the military scenario starts to become very problematic and with many civilian casualties and the like. So I think that the danger here is having only two options, my way or the highway. I think we have to talk about the third options that achieve the results that we think are the best for the situation.
And how would that apply here?
I think that it means that the disarming multilateral strategy has to be used first. Yeah. I think that...
How did I know you were going to say that?
Well, I saw the contempt on your face.
No, I'm just sorry. It was becoming...
Of the idea, not of
I don't think, I'm not here to speak for the administration, and anyway, they certainly wouldn't invite me to be their advocate, but I don't think that there is a hysterical triumphalist.
But I think what Christopher is saying is that this is the moment where it's a regime change or nothing, where I think many people would say that with the war on terrorism and other priorities, our central concern is eliminating a nuclear or weapons of mass destruction threat, and that makes
Well, I don't see why these things have to oppose
priority.
each other. If I was to say that I rested my entire case on the Genocide Convention and the execution of a warrant against Saddam Hussein for crimes against humanity and war crimes, you wouldn't say to me, well, that's all very well, but shouldn't we be fighting the war on terrorism also? I mean, that would be making two good ideas a prisoner of each other, to the accomplishment of neither. Don't make the best the enemy of the good, in other words.
But
I mean, there are at least four very good reasons why, at least four very persuasive reasons why Saddam Hussein's regime ought to be removed, and we'd all be better off, including the Iraqi people, if it were. One can't always mention all four of them every time. But it's irritating, I think, to try and put them into a needless opposition or antagonism to each other.
I got to close this down soon. Michael?
My argument with Christopher is a very old one, I think. There's a slogan on the left where we both grew up. The liberation of the working class must be the work of the working class itself. And I think that applies not only to class politics, it applies to democratic politics generally.
To overthrow it.
It has to be done. I mean, we can stop mass murder. We should stop ethnic cleansing. When people are in desperate trouble, when people are radically helpless, then intervention is justified. But tyrannies, authoritarian regimes, class hierarchies have to be overthrown from within.
Christopher, I have to end it there.
That's why Karl Marx called for the firing of General McClellan and the hiring of General Grant. He thought that these good causes might need a bit of muscle behind them. It's true. Look it up. He was Lincoln's best promoter in Europe at a time when the Europeans didn't support Mr. Lincoln. They supported the Confederacy instead.
Christopher, thank you for joining us.
Anytime.
Harold, thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you.